Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. I've been flying around the globe in my SR-72 Lockheed CIA spy plane and making some observations and connecting some dots. And today's story is going to be about the murder of a 35-year-old neuroscientist, microbiologist by the name of Tristan Thomas Beaudette, and he was murdered in a state campground, a California state park known as Malibu Creek State Park, which is in relatively close proximity to Pepperdine University, which is code for Hughes Research Laboratory, which is approximately 4.5 miles down the hill from the Malibu Creek State Park where Tristan Thomas Beaudette was shot in the head by a rifle whilst sleeping next to his two daughters, age 4 and 2. If you can believe that you'd take a 2-year-old camping overnight, that's what happened. And in the tent beside them was Tristan Thomas Beaudette's brother-in-law, who's married to his wife's sister, Scott McCurdy. And he has 2 sons, don't know the age. And they were in a tent beside Tristan Beaudette, who's in his tent with his 2 daughters, age 4 and 2. And the murder happened approximately 4:45 a.m. on June 22nd, 2018. Now, that's an important date because it just so happens to be that I was staying at the Holiday Inn Express in Port Hueneme, which is the United States Navy facility for Marines, and that is located in Oxnard, which is probably about 25 miles northwest of this site, which again I'm telling you is in close proximity to Pepperdine University and the Malibu gated colony. CIA Spooksville is that entire hillside, which is quite extensive. I've never been to this particular murder scene, if you were wondering if I'd been to this Malibu Creek State Park. No, I've never been there, and I've never been on the road that leads to it. But I have been on Malibu Highway, no relation to Malibu Drive, although it does connect up through a series of side streets in the town of Calabasas near Tarzana, and not too far from the Getty Museum. Anyway, off Highway 405, aka the San Diego Freeway. That's where Mulholland Highway eventually goes past Calabasas High School, where the Eric Menendez attended. Eric Menendez attended Calabasas High School. Did not attend Beverly Hills High School, as Dominic Dunn wants you to believe. All right, so with that said, let's get down to business. All right, I'll just read you the media report of what happened, and then we can discuss the truth after we read the poppycock. All right, so it turns out I was down there for a bike race, which would have been Saturday morning, and I believe I started my bike race at 5 a.m. sharp, so about 24 hours after this murder, which happened on a Friday morning at 4:45 a.m. And my bike race began 24 hours after that in Port Hueneme, which is essentially Oxnard. And I raced until approximately 7 p.m. at night when I finished 200 miles. It was a long day. And I don't remember hearing about this case until after I was back in my hotel room, had showered, and was fading off into sleep. And this was on the Saturday evening news in Los Angeles. And that's when I learned about this. My first thoughts were, where was the wife? I always think, where's the spouse? Well, the spouse was in Irvine Orange County where they lived. She's a medical doctor doing a residency at University of California, Irvine, which, if you don't know, that's part of the Spook Network. Anything to do with the University of California systems is part of the Spook system. She had a big exam planned and was changing jobs, going to be wrapping up her residency, as was her husband Tristan Beaudette, age 35. He's changing jobs too. He's working for a biotechnology company just walking distance from UC Irvine campus off of Jamboree Boulevard. Just about a block away from there is where Thomas Beaudette was working, and we'll get into that in a little bit, this global pharmaceutical biotech company and what Tristan Beaudette's duties were there, because they're quite revealing in my opinion, and could lead to a very good motive as to why he was shot and killed Friday morning at 4:45 a.m. Tristan Beaudette, a 35-year-old white man, was shot and killed Friday, June 22nd at Malibu Creek State Park, according to the Los Angeles coroner's records. Beaudette was shot inside of his tent at 4:45 a.m. while he was camping with his two young daughters, ages 2 and 4, at the 1900 block of Los Virgenes Road in Calabasas, which I'm telling you, that's essentially the zip code for Pepperdine University and the Hughes Research Laboratory. It's 4.5 miles from the Hughes Research Laboratory, according to the Sheriff's Department. And to be perfectly frank, it's 1925 is the campground location. There's 63 campgrounds in the Malibu Creek State Park, and according to records, they were all filled on this, June 22nd, Friday morning. Because it's summer, it's Malibu, and people are vacationing. And in the case of Tristan Beaudette, he's taken the daughters away so that mommy can concentrate on this examination that she needed to take. And I can understand that. I can understand getting the kids away for the weekend. Apparently, they must have left on Thursday the 21st, because in order to get the camp set up, and there are picnic tables and there's flush toilets in close proximity to this campground where he was killed, just so you know. It's also very close to this Los Virgenes Road. I mean, it's real close. I mean, in other words, a car could drop you off on the road at 4 o'clock in the morning, or at the gate of the state park where there's a pullout. It could drop you there, and you just walk over a little wooden fence piece, like a bunny rabbit, and there's some walking trails that will take you right to this Tristan Beaudette campground, where he has set up camp along with his wife's sister's husband, Scott McCurdy, and his two sons. But remember, at 4:45 a.m., this is 90 minutes before the sunrise, so everybody's asleep. No one is awake. Beaudette was pronounced dead at the scene at 5:21 a.m., according to the coroner records. Sheriff's Lieutenant Rodney Moore said, investigators are trying to identify the assailant and are sifting through evidence from the scene for details. Well, there are no details, and there is no evidence that was left at the scene. There's no bullet cartridge. I don't know what details there could possibly be looking for. There aren't any. Beaudette was a renowned scientist who worked in the pharmaceuticals industry. His family said he loved cooking and microbrewers. He was married to his high school sweetheart, which originally was from Fresno, California. He was happiest out in nature, they said. His selfless devotion to his children came naturally. Tristan found true joy in all aspects of being a father. The grief and trauma of this loss has caused our close-knit family. It's indescribable. Okay, that has nothing to do with anything that we need to know about the crime, right? That's just a standard bullet that you always say when somebody dies and you don't really know how they died, right? After the fatal shooting, the Sheriff's Department said it's reviewing 3 unsolved shootings in that area. Yeah, unresolved shootings that resulted in nobody getting killed. So one part of the cover story here is they eventually come up with there were 7 previous shooting reports in this area over the last 18 months leading up to this killing. However, what you should know is nobody got killed, nobody died, nobody actually got hit by a bullet. So it fits into the category of who cares. We're talking about a murder. So I can assure you there were no 7 other murders that occurred in this area. But anyway, it sounds pretty menacing when you read this, because it sounds like, oh my God, there's a crazy killer out there, or maybe he's part of a cult family, like Charlie Manson, right? Except in this case, Charlie Manson had an alibi. He was in Corcoran State Prison, and actually he died. He'd already died, so he's dead. So you can't blame Charlie Manson. You cannot blame Charlie Manson for this killing, because he was incarcerated and dead. Anyway, these incidents are in addition to 2 shootings that happened on November 3rd, 2016 and January 17th. January 2017, no date, where no one got killed. Nicole Nishida, a sheriff's department spokeswoman, she said the 3 unresolved shootings occurred nearby within the sheriff's jurisdiction. Lovely. Again, fits into the category of who cares. Superfluous information that has nothing to do with the story. Nobody got killed except Tristan Beaudette. Tristan Thomas Beaudette. It's the only person who died of a shooting, which we're assuming is a rifle. Anyway, Beaudette of Irvine, California, was camping to allow his wife, an Orange County obstetrician, some quiet time to study for an examination. He was accompanied by his brother-in-law and his 2 children, who happened to be boys, and they had their own tent. Pam Wu, who is Beaudette's sister-in-law, who's married to this Scott McCurdy. Pam Wu, Beaudette's sister-in-law, wrote in a Facebook post that her husband, Scott McCurdy, was with their 2 sons on the camping trip with Beaudette and his children. Those who responded to the scene were told by the campers that they think the shot came from a distance, pierced the tent, according to the sources who spoke on condition of anonymity, because they were not authorized to comment. That's a bizarre comment. Who is not authorized to comment? Am I authorized to comment? Am I authorized to do this video? Hey, if you're a witness, just say what you saw or what you didn't see, because at 4:45 a.m., it's pitch darkness. The sun doesn't come up until 6:20 a.m. So there really are no eyewitnesses. There could be ear witnesses to this shooting. The coroner spokesman revealed that Beaudette was shot in the head. Now that's a heck of a shot. Unless you have infrared camera equipment, x-ray vision, and or you have nanotechnology or microtechnology or cell phone tracking up to your head. To be able to hit a target that's obscured by a tent, sleeping next to 2 little girls, I would say that's very professional. Now, what's the mathematical probability that some whack job with a rifle would just go into a campground with 63 campsites and perhaps 130 people or more, and randomly shoot one time, single shot only, and hit one of the campers in the head, and that camper happens to be a neuroscientist that works at a premier global pharmaceutical company next door to University of California, Irvine? I'd say it's 0. There's no chance that could happen randomly. No chance. I'm saying that the only way that Tristan Beaudette could be shot in the head at 4:45 a.m. next beside his 2 daughters that were unharmed is the exact same way that Sharon Tate could be murdered in a home not belonging to her in her campsite next to William Garrickson, 19 years old, unharmed, and 3 dogs, unharmed, and everybody else on the property bayoneted to death. Professional. In other words, there's got to be some technology, which you know exists, to shoot a high-powered rifle through the skin of a tent into a man's head, who happens to be a 35-year-old project director, pharmacist, scientist, having to do with polygenes and nanotechnology. And I think that we've been covering Hollywood murders long enough to know that there's murders in the science field, there's murders in engineering, there's murders in aerospace technology, there's murders in banking. We know about Roberto Calfi, we know about Aaron Valente, we know about Michele Sindona, all involved with money laundering banking activities, who all were murdered, and they were in banking. The Beaudette family has been preparing to move to Northern California, and a GoFundMe account has raised more than $100,000 for the family. Okay, that's another red flag, people. As we know from the Anne Heche fake fiery car crash, whenever you have a GoFundMe page and it quickly fills up with over 100 grand, that's the CIA's way of apologizing for taking out your killers. Something like that was done in the John Kennedy murder, just so you know. Peanut Island. Someone made a huge donation to Peanut Island in Palm Beach, Florida, after the John Kennedy murder to renovate the property, which never got renovated. Peanut Island. See, they didn't have GoFundMe pages back in 1964, but they had Peanut Island renovation projects. And that seems to be a commonplace theme. That's what happened in the tortoise lady, the homeless tortoise lady, got over a couple $100,000 in a GoFundMe page, quick like a bunny rabbit, thanks to Cato Kaland and David Perlman, right? In a CIA neighborhood called Culver City, which they like you to think is called Mar Vista. Anyway, do I see similarities with this murder and other clandestine services events that I've studied? Well, let me put it this way. Yes, I do. quite a few. Quite a few, as a matter of fact. So that was the official story when it happened. All right, so it's been some times gone by. I happen to have a bike racing buddy who lives in close proximity to this neighborhood and has probably been to that park before. And he races road bikes, but he also races mountain bikes. And he does mountain bike all over this Hidden Hills, Lost Hills, West Hills, Calabasas, Malibu Highway, Pepperdine University, Ramirez Canyon Creek, Ramirez Mesa Drive area. He knows it like the back of his hand. I don't know this area very well. I've been through Topanga Canyon on Highway 27. I've climbed back up through Mulholland Highway from north of Point Dume. I've certainly ridden my bike past Pepperdine University. I've ridden all around the perimeter of the Malibu Colony. I've walked near the Hidden Gate at the Malibu Colony. I parked my car across the street from it. I've been to the CVS pharmacy there. I've been to the Starbucks where Bruce Jenner met his 21-year-old Pepperdine University girlfriend for a while. Been to that Starbucks, which is right next to the CVS pharmacy. I mean, it's in the same shopping center, and which is at the bottom of the hill below Pepperdine University. You know, where Lawrence Schiller went. Although he didn't attend that campus, he attended a downtown Los Angeles campus of Pepperdine University. Lawrence Schiller. Now, as far as I know, he's not involved in this Tristan Beaudette murder. He's involved with pretty much all CIA operations. This seems to be off of his radar screen. He's a little up there in age now. Lawrence Schiller is 86 years old, so perhaps he's being retired. So Erica Wu, who apparently grew up in Fresno area, as did Tristan, her husband, they're about the same age, but I think Erica Wu is maybe a year older. Let's say they're both 35, 36 years old at the time of the murder, which is now almost 3 years old, right? So, 3 years old. 4 years old murder. So, Erica Wu went to University of California, San Francisco Medical School for her MD license. She did her residency there at University of California, Irvine in Orange County, next door to Newport Beach. It's walking distance to Newport Beach. And this is where Tristan Beaudette worked. And let me read you his credentials, because they're quite impressive and they're quite relevant to the COVID vaccines, which his wife Erica is indirectly involved with the children over age 6, which Stanford, she's a child pediatrician now at Stanford Medical Center, and you know they're all drinking the Kool-Aid over there, right, with their face diaper policies and their vaccine that they want to roll out to all children over age 6, which they're very proud of that cult ritual. I'm not. I'm ashamed of it. I'm embarrassed And not only am I embarrassed, I'm enraged by it. I find the whole thing illegal, unethical, immoral, improbable, and of course subject to the Committee of Public Safety's retribution and or convictions. So just so you know what we're dealing with here, let me find it. Okay, so Beaudette worked for this pharmaceutical company which is based in Ireland. It's called Allergan, an Irish pharmaceutical company, and it has offices all around the world. Here the offices are essentially off of Jamboree Boulevard in close proximity to University Drive, which is next door to UC Irvine. Walking distance. Tristan Beaudette began his career at USC Allergan postdoctoral fellow as a USC Allergan postdoctoral fellow when he was working on his drug delivery systems. He got a PhD from University of California, Berkeley. Okay, you should know that Tristan Beaudette attended University of California, San Diego, which is in La Jolla, and that's completely funded by the pharmaceutical industry. And I had a good client of mine, good friend and client, who graduated from UC San Diego, where he got a PhD in microbiology. And basically, you work for the pharmaceutical industry on an unpaid basis to get your postdoctoral license. Sometimes they pay you stipends if you teach or you grade papers, you know, as a postdoctoral fellow. Anyway, Tristan, whilst getting his PhD from Berkeley, he from August 2011 till March 2015, he was a scientist at Allergan, supporting the formulation and manufacturing process for sustained release combination type products. Now that's kind of code for COVID vax, isn't it? He was promoted to senior scientist in March 2015, and he was, quote, leading cross-functional CMC teams supporting the development of several late-stage sustained-release combination product dosage formations, which included intraocular biodegradable implants and non-degradable implants. Perhaps Tristan Beaudette had a non-degradable implant in his right temple. You think? Maybe that could be GPS tracked and plugged into a laser guided bullet coming out of a high-tech long rifle. You think? You think that these students that work for the pharmaceutical industry for the promise of employment, do you think they volunteer to be laboratory rats? I do. Absolutely, I do. And I know specific examples where they have done that, including Stanford University, that collected hundreds of millions of dollars for the prisoner dilemma game from the United States Army, for God's sakes, and they allow their own students to participate as lab rats with the United States Navy for Stanford Research Institute, or allegedly on campus in their psychology building in the basement, which I don't believe. I believe they collect the money, but I believe they do it off campus, just like they do at Harvard University, off campus with Timothy Leary, another University of California PhD, Timothy Leary, right? Big shot department head for psilocybin at Harvard University, who's a friend of Oliver Stone, whose real name is William Oliver Silverstein. Oliver Stone, William Silverstein, same person. Anyway, let me go on to say that this is Tristan Beaudette's own words. He wrote, leading manufacturer process technology transfer activities to support phase 3 clinical trials, registration and commercialization, leading formational and manufacturing process development for sustained release combination products, actively contributing to the development of a drug device combination products and design, contributing to technical CMC assessment as part of late stage due diligence activities. Okay, I think that Tristan Beaudette is very poor in terms of his linguistics and his applied linguistics. I mean, that's all gobbledygook. Let me just break it down to you. I'm pretty good at this kind of thing, people. Let me tell you what Tristan Beaudette said without saying. They make stuff to inject into your body that will have slow release. They have two versions. One degrades and disappears and your body flushes it. The other doesn't. It's permanent. The other doesn't. It's a delivery tool that could perhaps be reloaded by future boosters and injections. And phase 3 is the new purpose of old drugs. New purpose for old drugs. In other words, they implant delivery system tools and distribution things into a human specimen. Then they boost it with old drugs for new purposes. Like LSD. Like strychnine poison. Like cyanide poison. Like whatever. Some cancer-causing derivatives. Intraocular biodegradable implants and non-degradable bioimplants. So what I'm telling you is I'm repeating Tristan Thomas Beaudette's own words written on his LinkedIn page. It's not my words, his words. I'm not the one that got shot in the head with a long-range rifle. He did. Inside of a tent, sleeping beside his daughter. That's very professional. And I think he had an implant. That's what I think. And his wife sets up a GoPro page where they get $100,000 real quick like a bunny rabbit. And I'm here to tell you that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Because before Tristan Beaudette's murder, which is what it was, he had visited Joshua National Park, which I have. He visited Mount Shasta, which I have. He visited Yosemite, which I have. And he visited this Malibu Creek State Park, which I have not. But I've been within 1 mile of it on Mulholland Highway. So I know the area. And what I'm saying is, how can this guy go to the University of California, San Diego, which costs a lot of money? How can he go to the University of California, Berkeley, which costs a lot of money? How can he get married and have 2 children with a woman who went to University of California, San Francisco, and is doing residency at University of California, Irvine, and be going off to vacations to Joshua Tree National Park, which is 5 hours away from Irvine, and go to Yosemite, which is even further away? I mean, I understand that they have family and friends in Fresno, which is in close proximity to Yosemite, but then go up to Shasta, Mount Shasta. That's way far away. That's 10-hour drive from Irvine. So they seem to be vacationing quite a bit. So how is it that they need a GoFundMe page when they're already wealthy? They're already doing great. They have 2 children. They're going to premier universities. And then they go on these very elaborate vacations. So what's with the GoFundMe page? Why do you need that? And who posted the $30,000 reward for any information leading to the killer of Tristan Beaudette? Because someone came up with $30,000 and nobody took it. There were never any leads in this case. Of course, just like the Sharon Tate murder, just like the Abigail Folger murder, right? Just like the Dr. Victor Oda murder up in Santa Cruz. Of course, they blame it on a homeless guy living in a creek bed. He did it. So let me read you. 6 months go by, and they end up blaming it on a parolee was charged with murder Monday morning. This is in January 2019. On essentially like January 5th or 6th, 2019, a parolee was charged. They don't say if he's federal or state parolee. Someone had been imprisoned, was charged with murder Monday in the June shooting death of a man killed inside of his tent while he camped with his daughters in a California state park. This is according to People magazine. That's another red flag. People injects itself into the stories like Anne Heche, like Sharon Tate. So does the Daily Mail. And the Daily Mail wrote a series of articles on the Tristan Beaudette, age 35, fatal shooting as well. And those are CIA periodicals. So that tends to support my theory that this was a CIA clandestine murder is what this was. Otherwise, People magazine wouldn't be talking about it. Just like in the case of if Vanity Fair is involved, if Lawrence Schiller's involved, if Dominic Dunn is involved, if Joan Didion is involved, if John Dunn is involved, if Oliver Stone is involved, if Mark Lane, if he's involved, then it's a CIA story. For sure. And I will get into that in a little bit. The victim, Tristan Beaudette, 35, was fatally shot while sleeping near his daughters. The suspect, Anthony Rauda, age 42. Now, of course, that's 3 years ago, so he's 45 years old now. He was also charged with 10 counts of attempted murder and 5 counts of second-degree burglary, according to the Los Angeles County's District Attorney's Office news release. See, they're just blaming him with all the reported shootings in the area and some secure, closed-circuit television film of a person in the middle of the night breaking into the water district offices nearby to, quote, steal food. I didn't even think that the water district, had food. What, you talking about somebody left a sandwich in the refrigerator? And those photographs are grainy and you can't tell if it was him. Anyway, the point is, I don't want to get into too much detail. They've got a guy in the county jail, Los Angeles, this Anthony Rauda, and they're blaming the murder on him. I think there is a 0 chance that he did it. I think he's a scapegoat. There are no shortages of scapegoats in any crime, period, in the United States of America. Okay? But let me just tell you some other disturbing things that were going on at the time that this murder happened on June 22nd, 2018. That's the one that kind of kicked it off. This is pre-COVID, people. This is pre-COVID. But it's very relevant to COVID because I basically have a guy who works for a pharmaceutical company which is in the implantation of non-degradable delivery systems working across the street from University of California, Irvine, where his wife is finishing up her residency, right, as a obstetrician. And she's taking a big exam, and then she's relocating to Palo Alto to work for the Stanford Medical Center, where she's going to be working with children who the university wants to promote vaccines for after age 6. So she's involved with that in the here and now. The only way she could not be involved is if she would resign and quit being a doctor and quit being a pediatrician and quit being, pretending that you're helping pregnant women. If you're promoting vaccines, you're not protecting pregnant women. All right, so the GoFundMe page is a red flag. People magazine and the Daily Mail being involved in writing up what happened to Tristan Beaudette is a red flag, but there's other red flags. You've heard of Kary Mullis, perhaps you haven't. He's the creator of the PCR DNA collections procedure. It's not a COVID test, people. There is no COVID test. The media has taken a DNA collections procedure, which Kary Mullis and Michael Smith share a Pulitzer Prize collecting when they were attending University of California, Berkeley, and that is where Kary Mullis received a PhD, which is where Tristan Beaudette received his PhD. It's where Timothy Leary, the LSD maven, received his PhD. It's where Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, received his PhD. So I've got the Unabomber, Kary Mullis, Timothy Leary. I've got Tristan Beaudette, all got their PhD in science and psychology from University of California, Berkeley. And Kary Mullis had his PCR test hijacked and used as a COVID test. Now, he wasn't around to object because he got killed or died on August 7th, 2019. So effectively, 1 year after Tristan Beaudette went to heaven, Kary Mullis, at age 74, died of pneumonia, and he lives in Newport Beach, which is walking distance where Tristan Beaudette worked and where Erica Wu was getting a residency from. It's walking distance to where Kary Mullis the world famous scientist who worked for one of my clients, by the way. He started out working at CETUS, which was a unholy alliance between University of California Systems and a biotechnology startup called CETUS. It was purchased by Chiron, and my client was product development director there. And then that was sold to Bayer, and then Bayer sold to Novartis, and Novartis owns Sandoz, which is the LSD manufacturing company. So Novartis owns LSD, and they own the PCR test, which is Kary Mullis' copyright, patent. And it's being misused to promote the illusion that people have influenza with no symptoms. With no symptoms. In other words, asymptomatic COVID, which is the main kind of COVID that there is, where you have no symptoms. All right, so Kary Mullis, very involved with the polymerase chain. So was Tristan Beaudette, the polymerase chain, and non-biodegradable delivery systems. Sounds like the vax. So if you put aluminum and titanium and lithium oxide into your body, aka graphite, that's non-biodegradable. That's GPS trackable. In other words, you can get picked up from a Wi-Fi mesh. You can be GPS tracked in your sleep, when you're sleeping inside of a tent in a California state park. That's a fact. I mean, it's undisputable. You can deny it if you're in a cult. If you're in a cult, you can deny reality. That's what cults are. That's why they drink the Flavor Aid. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you is I find this disturbing. I also find it disturbing that then on just 2 months to the day after Kary Mullis goes off to heaven, Aaron Valente has a meeting with a shadow banker next door to Stanford University, which is where Erica Wu is going to work and where she was working at the time of this murder. Aaron Valente meets with a elite private banker on Sand Hill Road, right across the street from Stanford University campus, and she goes to heaven. You know, it takes I think 7 days for her body to be discovered. She disappears on a Monday afternoon at approximately 3 p.m. That's the last time she was seen alive, is 3 p.m. Monday afternoon, October 7th, and her body turns up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 4.5 days later, her body is discovered in the city of San Jose, in the Almaden Valley, approximately 17.5 miles away from her last appointment with Mr. Big. I think those are all related. I think that the shadow banking element of Aaron Valente, remember her last words were, "It's all a game, it's a thought experiment, we're in the Matrix." Those were her last words spoken to her mother before she died. And Kary Mullis, the inventor of the PCR DNA collection procedures, that he dies 2 months before Aaron Valente and 1 year after Tristan Thomas Beaudette, who works and resides in close proximity to him in Newport Beach, Irvine, California. I think those three people, deaths are directly linked. And the fact that the Daily Mail and People magazine have to tell you what happened, and that they found a homeless man with a rifle whose ballistics does not match the bullet that's in Thomas Beaudette's head. Where have we heard that before, right? In the Charlie Manson case, they admitted Ronald Reagan's pistol, allegedly. Couldn't prove it was Ronald Reagan's, but it kind of sort of looked like Ronald Reagan's pistol, who's the governor of California at the time of this trial. And that the ballistics test, which took 4 months for them to do, did not match the bullets taken out of the 3 victims at Cielo Drive. Stephen Parent, Thomas Coomer, Jay Sebring, and Wojtek Frykowski. They had 7 bullets to compare to the barrel of this long-nosed buntline 22. It didn't match. So the judge, Charles Older, allows a pistol which was not used in the commission of this murder. He allows it to convict Charlie Manson, even though it wasn't used in the commission of the murder. And we have that going on with the Tristan Beaudette case because they're alleging that this homeless man from Florida who is living in the Malibu Hills, which, by the way, just so you know what else is up there, we have Hughes Research Laboratory, we have TRW has a research laboratory, Boeing is up there on property that was used to be controlled by Rocketdyne, which is Aerojet, which is code for Jack Parsons' lab, Jet Propulsion Lab. That's the corporation that builds the Saturn rockets for the moon program. They have a whole facility in close proximity to where the homeless guy's living, in close proximity to Calabasas, to close proximity to where the Menendez family was building a ranch home near Calabasas High School. It's all within 5-6 miles of each other, people. And it's in close proximity where the Gary Hinman death occurred in Topanga Canyon. It's not that far away from the Gary Hinman murder. I mean, you got to go back in time. If you go back in time, you'll find quite a few murders committed in this zip code. Because we know that Calabasas, which is essentially Canoga Park, the head of porn. See, they've renamed a lot of aspects of Canoga Park to West Hills, where the Peter Grossman Burn Center is, which is really a cosmetic surgery center. They call that West Hills, but it's Canoga Park. And then they have Hidden Hills, which is a gated community near West Hills, which is Canoga Park. But they call it Hidden Hills, right off of Highway 101, the Ventura Highway. And then to the south of the highway, you have Calabasas High School, which buttress up to Mulholland Highway, which will take you over to where Tristan Beaudette was shot in the head through his tent at 4:45 in pitch darkness a.m. on June 22nd, 2018. All right? So this really frosts me. So I'm telling you that I see a connection here between University of California, Berkeley, University of California, San Francisco, which has a neuroscience center, and University of California, Irvine, which has a neuroscience center, and University of California, Los Angeles, which has a neuroscience center, with the name of Oliver Stone's friend, Terry Semmel, on it, because he must have been required to donate millions of dollars to UCLA in order for the brain restructuring program, where Louis Jolion West worked, who used to work for Abigail Folger's mother, Ines Mejia. Yeah, he was the department head of psychology at UCLA after he worked with Ines Mejia, Abigail Folger's mother, in San Francisco at Haight-Ashbury, alongside Timothy Leary, who's a UC Berkeley alumni for a PhD program. Same as Tristan Beaudette. He's a alumni of UC Berkeley. PhD. As is Kary Mullis, the inventor of the PCR DNA collections procedure. Alumni of UC Berkeley. Same as the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. Same as, don't get me started on Robert McNamara. He also got a master's degree from University of California, Berkeley. And he went on to betray, John Kennedy as the Secretary of Defense. What a fraud he was. And he grew up in the same neighborhood that Ines Mejia grew up, Piedmont, California. All right, thanks for listening, and we'll have more. It's a whole treasure trove of University of California systems, homicide, blaming it on the scapegoat, Calabasas, Pepperdine University, Hughes Research Lab, California State Park. You should know that the George Spahn Ramp, that's a California State Park now also. So there seems to be some correlation with the fact that when you have a homicide scene, you generally make sure it's part of the state of California. Also, you should know that Erica Wu sued the state of California and the county of Los Angeles for $90 million for failing to warn her and her husband that there were shootings in that area. Never mind that there have been no shooting deaths. Anyway, Santa Monica Superior Court judge kicked that lawsuit down the road. Said you're going to have to come up with more correlation, that the sheriff doesn't have a duty to report non-lethal crimes. And I agree, they don't. But anyway, I think that the lawsuit was just to create the illusion that that there's some whack job out there with a rifle shooting people. I don't believe that. I believe there's professional killers with rifles with infrared and GPS tracking devices that go with non-biodegradable delivery system GPS tracking systems that might be floating around in a person's skull or brain, right? Because if you can GPS track a person's brain, you should be able to hit them with a bullet using a high-powered rifle. Thanks again for listening. Hit the like and subscribe. Take care.